Over the past week, I've been making a Mother Gooseberry cosplay, and in this tutorial I will be showing you how I made the Dr. Futterman hand puppet. The materials I used were EVA foam, upholstery foam, hot glue gun, hot glue, felt, black and white fabric, apple barrel acrylic paint, tinfoil, foam clay, metal wire, plastic ping pong balls, Mod Podge, feathers, faux fur, and door hinges. My first step was drawing a crude reference of what I wanted. In this early stage, I've decided the drill in his mouth would be too complex, considering my current skill and material. Therefore, I left it out entirely. After making the vague reference, I created a jaw prototype using basic duct tape and cardboard. This gave me an idea of what I wanted and what to do before I move on to using more expensive materials in the future. After I got the reference for the jaw, I used EVA foam and hot glue to make the base for his bill. Unfortunately, I wasn't taking pictures in this early stage, so I drew some diagrams for a visual aid. I created a large ring for the base of the bill that would act as the sear for his beak. After I glued the ring together, I traced the size of the bill on my prototype and transferred it to EVA foam. I was having issues thinking of a way to securely and firmly attach the jaw while having it able to move, so I used door hinges. I'm surprised how well this worked in the long term, so I highly suggest you do the same when building your own. After having the movable jaw and ring in place, I attached 2 upholstery foam blocks to the inside of the beak. Then I cut a hole in each block. These I will use as a handle to put my fingers and thumbs into, so I can open and close the beak with one hand. After implementing the jaw mechanism, I stacked some upholstery foam to the back of the head to give the head some shape. This will also give your arm and hand some leverage when you're puppeteering. Finally, we're back to the pictures. This is the design so far. For the head, there are 4 layers of 2-inch foam. I recommend for you to use an electric knife to shave the foam off the head for the desired shape. You should get an electric knife for this project because it is likely you will hurt your hand from strain if you use scissors. I learned from my mistakes. Be sure to take lots of breaks to give your back and hands a rest. This project took just under 30 hours, so take your time and do it right the first time. I then covered the head with tinfoil to give it some more shape, making sure to hot glue it down because tinfoil tends not to stick to things. I then glued a black felt shaft for my arm and covered the rest of it with tinfoil and black fabric. Almost all of the fabric I used was from old clothes, so that is why you see the seams across the fabric. After securing the fabric to the head, I added a ring of EVA foam to the top of the head for the rim of his hat. I then measured the ring and made the barrel for the top hat and glued it on. I then started working on his eyes. His eyes are made of plastic balls slightly bigger than ping pong balls. I then painted the eyes using acrylic paints. I also painted Dr. Futterman's beak white to act as a primer for later. This is how it looked so far. Definitely needs work. I then added the base for his teeth using EVA foam. I also added a casing to the handles to reinforce them. This is how the back of the fabric looked at this stage. I decided to glue more felt to it. I then decided to give the fabric a light green dry brush to give him his color. While dry brushing, you don't want any water to be on the brush so it can give it that aged feel. I also painted the top of his hat. And here's how it looks so far. Not too bad, but he needs his eyes. I began cutting into the fabric to give his eyes a solid platform foundation made out of EVA foam. The foam will be glued to the interior tinfoil as well as the inside of the fabric. It's time to work more on the eyes. Add some bulk to the eyes using tinfoil and duct tape. It will also help to choose the shape of the eyelids. After that, cut out some felt and glue it to the outside of the duct tape. You can then paint the felt orange and glue them to his head. This is how it should look so far, and don't worry if it doesn't. Just keep pushing and you'll get there. I then added eyelashes made out of metal wire. These things were a pain and I'll probably end up removing or replacing them altogether. I also felted the inside of the mouth so it looks cleaner. I then added some mechanical details to the sear such as hinges and bolts. After getting these in place, I finally started painting the beak yellow, including the interior, because I accidentally painted it pink earlier. Here's the beak so far. I covered the hat with a loose black piece of old suit jacket fabric and gave it a red dry brush. I also gave the hat and beak weathering. Here is the second update of what it should look like at this point. Now, onto the bow tie. The pattern I made used 3 sheets shaped like this. I sewed the 2 pieces to themselves and glued the remaining piece in a tight wrap to connect the 2. I began coloring the tie with a very watered down yellow acrylic paint. After that, I painted the white polka dots on it. When I was finished with the entirety of the tie, I then added some gray faux fur to Dr. Futterman's neck to give his future feathers a base. I began scoring the areas of the beak that I'll add the clay foam to so it would have something to hold on to. I then began sculpting Dr. Futterman's teeth onto the EVA foam base using foam clay. I recommend marking where you want the teeth before you sculpt them to reduce the chance of messing up. I then added texture to the gums and grooves on the teeth. I also added detail to the exterior of the beak, including carving out the nostrils. When the teeth had dried, I sculpted the metal frame to the teeth. Now comes the gross part, dyeing the feathers. There were no gray feathers at Hobby Lobby, so I decided to dye some white ones gray. You think it's the disgusting feather soup on screen that is gross, but no, it was the smell. For some reason, the feathers smelled so bad, and to this day I still don't know why. Definitely just buy some gray feathers when you're doing this. Anyway, I painted the gray band on his top hat and decided to paint the faux fur darker so it didn't feel so soft and looked greasier. I then painted the teeth and all of the metallic assets on his beak. This is the third update of what he should look like at this point. I then glued the feathers to his neck when they dried, and luckily they didn't smell anymore. After that, I added the base of the bow tie to his neck and glued the bow tie on. I then painted the strip to be just like the tie. After this, I Mod Podged the eyes and teeth, giving them a glossy finish, and we're done. Thank you for watching my tutorial on how to make Dr. Futterman, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or concerns, please put them down in the comments below. And if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, so turn on those notifications and drop a like. See you in the next one.